Huge week of football across the Big 12. We enter the conference schedule, and it's a showdown in Stillwater as number 12 Utah goes on the road to take on the surging 14th ranked Oklahoma State Cowboys. All that and more right now on Inside the 12. Hello and welcome into the premiere of Inside the 12, your new favorite college football show. Alongside Pete Sousa, I'm Madison Hock, and we're thrilled to be with you all season long as we dive into the biggest matchups and the biggest storylines week to week inside the Big 12. And Pete, if the first 3 weeks were any indication, well, we're in for a lot of fun this season.
You said it, storylines and stars. Hollywood couldn't write a better script.
Yeah, one of the deepest, if not the deepest, conferences in all of college football. It is hard to believe we are already in week 4 of the season. That means it is time for conference play in the Big 12. Let's go ahead and take a look at the week 3 scoreboard. A lot to unpack here. Arizona State with a big win, 31-28 over Texas State. What did you take away from week 3 in these scores?
Texas Tech reemerging, really. There was a lot of questions around their defense and their offense. 66 points against North Texas. Very impressive. We'll talk about Kansas State. Their win over Arizona, obviously a ranked opponent, was impressive.
And UCF and TCU, how about that game? A thriller. UCF went on to win 35-34, but it was close until the final seconds.
And keep your eye on Baylor, really taking care of business at home, winning going away against Air Force. That defense means business this year.
Yeah, you've had a chance to cover the Big 12 throughout the college football season. Up to week 4 now, what are your biggest takeaways? You mentioned Kansas State. They have been really fun to watch.
I told you we get to the Wildcats. You didn't have to wait long, right? One big reason, this guy right here, Avery Johnson. Wildcats take on BYU this weekend. We will preview that game momentarily, but the BYU coaches are already comparing Avery Johnson to Lamar Jackson. He's becoming a part of the Heisman conversation. And this is a great reason why. You see his ability to throw, you see his ability to run. This was a team that was down 7-0 against Arizona at home. They put together 31 unanswered points. Huge win for them. Yeah, put the Big 12 on notice for sure. UCF was down 21 points early in the third quarter. They stormed their way back. What impressed you the most with this win? KJ Jefferson. This is a guy who's played now 41 major college football games on a big stage. His ability to show calm, cool, and moxie, guiding his team back down by 3 scores. Very impressive work by him. And they also had a balanced attack coming back. Running and throwing. You have to talk about R.J. Harvey if you're going to talk about the Knights.
How about Colorado, though? We knew they had the firepower on offense, but Pete, the defense showed up big time in week 3 with a big road win for the Buffaloes.
First-year defensive coordinator Robert Livingston is obviously starting to earn his money very early on in his contract with the Buffaloes. The fact that they only allowed 9 points on the road at Colorado State, that's the lowest number of points they've allowed in the Coach Prime era. It shows their defense is headed in the right direction.
And to your point, it's only the second time that Colorado has allowed an opponent to score 14 or less points since Coach Prime has been there. With that, it is now time to announce our players of the week. Let's start on the offensive side of the ball. UCF running back R.J. Harvey. Does that name ring a bell? He wins this week's Offensive Player of the Week. He had 29 carries for 180 yards in the Knights' big win over TCU. And get this, Harvey is averaging almost 8 yards per carry. Wow.
And a lot of it is after contact, which is exceptional when you see a running back like that. You mentioned, does the name ring a bell? He's been ringing the bell so far all year long.
Absolutely. Well, okay, on the defensive end, Colorado's do-it-all superstar, Travis Hunter. That's a name that we hear a lot throughout the college football season. He got his first interception of the season and then chased down Colorado State's Avery Morrow for a touchdown-saving tackle in the fourth quarter.
4 turnovers for that Colorado defense. He keyed that effort. Colorado State started off the second half with 3 straight turnovers on their first 3 possessions. Travis Hunter, a key to that effort for Colorado.
As far as special teams is concerned and our player of the week, well, there are 3 phases to the football game. Kansas State has shown they can dominate on offense. They have shown they can do just well enough on defense. And a play like this by Dylan Edwards, a 71-yard punt return for a touchdown. Our special teams player of the week lets you know that Kansas State can create fireworks at any time in the football game. Edwards using his vision. Remember now, he is a running back by trade. And right here, he uses that vision to get to the outside, find his blocks. Man, a lot of daylight, and he doesn't make any mistakes all the way into the end zone in that huge victory against a ranked opponent Friday night.
That's now going to lead us into the state of the conference, because it's hard to believe that we are 3 weeks in, which means we are starting to get a feel to how the Big 12 is shaping up. Without a doubt, this is one of the deepest, if not, as I mentioned earlier, the deepest, because of all the versatility and talent across the board. But it does get even more exciting now with conference play starting this week. Of course, the biggest talk around college football this season is that playoff expansion. And Pete, with the new changes to the college football playoff, what teams have your attention?
It really does get excited. It feels like Christmas in October when you're talking about a 12-team playoff. Oklahoma State would love to be a part of that party, and here's a reason why. Alan Bowman has thrown for nearly 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns through the air, some of it right here. They have done a terrific job. He is a big reason why Oklahoma State is in the conversation, possibly, of being a playoff team.
A top 15 team right now, and they're going to have a fun matchup against Utah. Speaking of Utah, coming off a win versus Utah State, and this was a fun one as well.
Oh, I cannot wait to watch that Oklahoma State-Utah game. And Cam Rising is a huge reason why Utah should be very excited about their chances. He missed 6 quarters of football after getting injured against Baylor. What is so exciting about Cam Rising is that team is absolutely terrifying when he is on the field. I think that the Utes are in store for a tough test when they get to Stillwater, but they got the right guy at the helm now and a possible playoff team.
Yeah, and hearing good news that Cam Rising is back after missing 6 quarters as well.
Yeah, that's something that Utah is going to need if they're going to go forward and enter that playoff conversation.
Well, there have been some surprising teams that have caught our eye through the first 3 weeks of the season. Back-to-back wins on the road has BYU unbeaten in week 4. When we're talking about the Cougars, what surprises you most with BYU?
I think Jake Retzlaff, their quarterback, early in the season, in camp, there was talk about who will start. Is it going to be Jake Retzlaff? It is Jake Retzlaff, and he has been performing very well for the Cougars this year. They are now 3-0. Second year in a row, they're going to enter conference play at 3-0, making them a team to watch. Also, they're hosting on Saturday night when they take on Kansas State. Boy, they would love an upset in Provo, a tough place to play.
Arizona State surprising a lot of people in the college football world as well. Why?
Well, because their defense has really called or answered the call. In this game we're looking at right here, Mississippi State, it was all about Cam Scatterbo. This is a guy really you want to watch. He's a reason to watch the Sun Devils and another reason to watch the Big 12. But I was really impressed with their defense late in the game in San Marcos in a tough environment against Texas State on a Thursday night. All of America was watching, and they were able to turn away that exciting offense in the later stages of the game and win, solidifying a victory.
It's going to be a fun week 4. Well, last week, Oklahoma State recorded its largest non-conference win against an FBS opponent in 6 years. Now they welcome Utah to Boone Pickens Stadium. We're going to preview that matchup when we come back on Inside the 12. Week 4 of the college football season is here, and that means the start of conference play across the Big 12. Pete, these are the type of weekends and the type of games that we love to just lay on our couch and enjoy them all.
Oh, we finally have a full Big 12 slate, 8 games. You can't see them right now, but you can't fake goosebumps. I'm very excited.
Let's start with a top 15 matchup. Pete, Utah travels to Oklahoma State, both undefeated teams and both with high expectations this season.
Yeah, Utah has never played in Stillwater, and this game couldn't be any more exciting for fans. When you think about the quarterback matchup, Cam Rising back for Utah, Alan Bowman, these are 2 guys who have played 7 years of college football, the 2 oldest quarterbacks in the game. This is a game that Utah has got to win. It's an opportunity for them to show that they are ready to be a real part of the playoff picture. Look for Ollie Gordon to get back on track for Oklahoma State. Has had a bit of a quiet start. I think that The passing game of Alan Bowman will get 9 guys out of the box, giving Gordon some room to work.
You mentioned it, Utah's first trip to Stillwater. That's a tough place to play, so this is going to be a really fun game to watch. Next up, we have Houston at Cincinnati. Houston coming off its first win in Week 3 over Rice. Could the momentum carry over?
Willie Fritz really hopes so. Both of these teams feeling good about themselves right now. You talk about Houston. They took the city back with that victory against Rice. And if you watch Cincinnati and Miami of Ohio play earlier this week, I'm telling you, this Cincinnati defense means business. They generate turnovers. They really hit their opponents. This is something that Cincinnati will have to lean on defensively to shut down Donovan Smith, a dual threat quarterback, if they're going to win.
Cincinnati's defense has been big time through the first 3 weeks of the season. West Virginia welcomes Kansas. The Mountaineers need a win after starting 1-2 and after blowing a 10-point lead in the final 5 minutes against Pittsburgh last week.
If you're a Mountaineer fan, if you're a Jayhawk fan, I'm not breaking any news right now. This has been a rough start to the season, but it's early, and both of these teams have the tools to turn things around. For Neil Brown and West Virginia, the key is to shut down Devin Neal. 333 yards rushing on the season for Neal. He's gotten over 100 yards per game for Kansas. That is something that will really have to happen. West Virginia has to stop Devin Neal.
Next up, Arkansas State traveling to number 20 Iowa State. Iowa State coming off a bye week, but remember that Week 2 win over Iowa, that was huge.
And Matt Campbell, head coach of Iowa State, says the bye week couldn't come at a better time for his squad. They've got a lot of young guys, and they also have some guys who are banged up. He said this week of practice was almost like another week of fall camp. Hurt players are back to health. They're ready to go. And he talked about being able to coach up some of those young guys. One of the guys who's no longer young is Rocco Becht. Under center, he has been phenomenal. Look for him to have a big day against Arkansas State.
A lot of fun matchups. We talked about it. The Big 12 is stacked from top to bottom, and we still have many more games to preview. When we come back, it's the Battle of the Iron Skillet as TCU heads to Dallas to take on SMU. And can BYU look to keep their undefeated streak alive? We'll find out. All that and more coming up on Inside the 12. Welcome back to Inside the 12. Week 4 is here, and we're previewing more matchups within the conference. TCU traveling across DFW to face SMU. Both teams 2-1, and this is a little crosstown rivalry. We've got the ACC versus the Big 12. What excites you about this matchup?
Josh Hoover really excites me. He has more passing yards than anyone else in the Big 12 right now, and he hasn't thrown an interception yet. His loss against UCF last week lets you know that TCU, well, they're vulnerable. This game, they get right. You mentioned it, crosstown rivals. SMU has had some trouble under center. I feel like this is a very difficult week for them to figure that out against this gamey TCU team.
A get-right game for TCU. Well, undefeated Arizona State is going to travel to Texas Tech. 3 of the next 4 games are all at home for the Red Raiders, but the Sun Devils traveling with a lot of momentum right now. Their 3 wins already matched the entire last season total wins.
And they have 1 win in Texas already last week. I wonder if they stuck around all week long. They're in Lubbock for this one. Like we mentioned, a very tough place to play. Joey McGuire, 66 points for his offense last week. Boy, did they need that. And they continue to put together a fireworks display. When you talk about their offense, you have to talk about Baron Morton. 975 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and just 2 interceptions. Now, Arizona State would love to keep him off the field. The way that they can do it is by getting the football to Cam Skattebo. Hopefully he can maybe slow down some of that momentum.
Skattebo, he has been impressive through the first 3 weeks of the season as well. Baylor traveling to Colorado and trying to slow down the Buffalo's offense. The Bears defense, they have it to do it. They lead the Big 12 in points allowed per game, giving up less than 10 points per game.
This is one of the most intriguing matchups of the weekend, in my opinion. Deion Sanders and that explosive Colorado offense against Dave Aranda, the defensive mastermind who is now back to calling plays defensively. And you mentioned it, the Baylor defense has been playing out of its mind. Can they stop Shedeur Sanders? And now Travis Hunter, who has really proven a lot of experts wrong, who said maybe he's not one of the best wide receivers in the country. Oh, he is. And by the way, he's also the Defensive Player of the Week reigning in the Big 12.
Yeah, two-time player in Travis Hunter. Okay, last up, Kansas State at BYU. And Pete, Wildcats quarterback Avery Johnson put his dual threat talents on full display last week against Arizona.
And now he's got to take it on the road, right? Provo, a very tough place to play. One of my favorite parts about this game, just doing a little research, we talked about it earlier in the show. Some of the BYU coaches are saying we got to get ready for a guy who plays like Lamar Jackson. And he wants to play Avery Johnson to his full potential this week. So he's already taking supplements to make sure that he'll be able to deal with some of that altitude in his team's first trip to Provo. This will be a clash of the Titans, two undefeated teams, and we're going to find out if Kansas State is for real. This is a gut check for them.
High praise to be compared to Lamar Jackson, am I right? Time for a quick break here on Inside the 12. When we come back, a very special guest is going to join the show to make his weekly picks. Hint, he's a familiar name to the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Welcome back to Inside the 12. Madison Hock alongside Pete Sousa. Thrilled to be with you. And time now for a very special guest to join us, former Oklahoma State captain Dion Amade. Dion, welcome to the show. You are our very first guest picker on this show, and rightfully so. You won over 40 games at Oklahoma State. Congrats on a great career. We're so excited to have you.
Well, thanks for having me. I feel honored to be the first guest.
Hey, you won 40 games on the field. Let's see how you do picking games off of it, all right?
Well, we come to win, so let's go, baby.
Let's do it. Time to get loose. Starting with Houston at Cincinnati. Dion, who you got?
Well, I think I'm going to go with Cincinnati on this one. Although, Houston's had a pretty impressive non-conference, especially the way they came out and competed against OU. I like Corey Kiner, the running back for Cincinnati, and I think it's going to be a close game, but I'm going to go with the home team.
All right, I'm going to disagree with you, Dion. We're off to a rocky start. I like Willie Fritz in Houston to keep it rolling with Donovan Smith under center.
I am going to agree with you. I'm going with Cincinnati. All right, let's take a look at Kansas and West Virginia. Both teams sitting at 1-2. Who you filling in this one?
Well, Jaden Daniels does not look like the quarterback that we saw the last time he wore that Jayhawks jersey. It seems like him and the new offensive coordinator really aren't clicking that well. West Virginia, although disappointing loss versus Penn State and some of the other, and Pitt with the non-conference, I think they'll bounce back and be able to get this one over Kansas.
I'm going with the Jayhawks to win, more so than anything because they have to. And I think Jalen Daniels gets right.
Not great chemistry already. I'm going with West Virginia. I'm going with West Virginia. All right, Arkansas State at Iowa State. That game is at 2 o'clock Eastern on ESPN+. Dion, who you filling in this one?
Well, Iowa State all the way. You got to stay with the Big 12 here, and especially with Iowa State coming off a bye week and that big-time win over rival Iowa. So I'm going to stay with the Cyclones.
I think we can all agree on this one.
Yep.
Iowa State, too, here.
Iowa State is mine as well. Arizona State at Texas Tech. Texas Tech with a big win in Week 3. Who you filling in this one?
Okay, Arizona State, they look good defensively. They've surprised some people, but here's the deal. Texas Tech passing game with Morton at quarterback is looking pretty good. There's some holes in the Arizona State secondary, so I'm going to stick with Texas Tech's Red Raiders.
Yeah, sounds like a guy who played a couple of games in Lubbock. I'm going with Texas Tech, too.
I'm going with Texas Tech as well. Okay, now time for a crosstown rivalry. TCU and SMU, a little Big 12 ACC matchup. Both teams sitting at 2-1 on the season. This game's at 5 o'clock Eastern on the CW. Dion, who you like in this one?
Well, after a tough loss last week to UCF in their first kind of Big 12 matchup, that wasn't a Big 12 matchup, I think TCU is going to be able to bounce back. They got to figure out how to slow down the rushing attack. UCF, took advantage of that in the second half, but I think they can get it done here.
Yeah, I like TCU as well. Josh Hoover not getting enough credit.
I like TCU as well. That's my pick. Baylor at Colorado. This is a big-time game as well. Both teams 2-1. That's at 8 o'clock Eastern on Fox. Dion, who you like, Colorado or Baylor?
Now, I know y'all didn't think y'all were going to invite somebody named Dion, and he wasn't going to pick
right.
Deion Sanders. So I'm going with the Colorado Buffaloes. They're going to go ahead and take care of those Baylor Bears.
Yeah, I like primetime and primetime as well. I like Colorado.
Can't really pick against Coach Prime. Kansas State versus BYU. This is a late game, 10:30 on ESPN. Dion, who you feeling in this one?
Man, guys, that BYU defense looks pretty good. I mean, they're going to shock some people this year, but Kansas State, they looked really dominant versus Arizona last week, and then Avery's looking to be the quarterback that everybody hoped he would be. I mean, that passing is a little iffy, but that rushing attack is dangerous. So give me the Kansas State Wildcats.
Yeah, once again, we're in unison. I like Avery Johnson and Kansas State, showing the nation just how good they are on the road in Provo.
Time now for our last pick, our biggest pick. It's Utah and Oklahoma State, two undefeated teams. Dion, it's a top 15 matchup, 4 o'clock Eastern on Fox. I do feel kind of silly even asking you this, considering your background, but who you got in this one?
Well, no bias, no bias. But the question is can Bowman stay consistent with his performance last week versus Tulsa? And can this offense finally run the football? Now, I think that they'll be able to kind of get some things done, but this game is going to be won between the trenches, all right? Defensive line, offensive line, whoever's tougher, that's the one that's going to get the W. I think because of the fact that Utah looks like Cam Rising's going to play, but defensively, the linebackers, they seem to be banged up a little bit, as well as some young defensive backs. Give me the Oklahoma State Cowboys to kind of get this victory at home. Going to be a close one.
You see how he went in on that one, right? I can't believe we even let this dude pick that game. But yeah, I'm going to disagree. Cam Rising's back for Utah. I like the Utes.
I'm going with the Cowboys as well. Dion and I here on the same page. Dion, you set the bar really high as our first guest picker. Thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
All right, have a good one. Pete, well, that was fun for our first show of Inside the 12.
Absolutely, and I can only imagine that this slate of games in the Big 12 this week going to be just as exciting.
It's going to be fun. It's hard to believe that week 4 is here. Thanks so much for joining us on the premiere of Inside the 12. Pete Sousa alongside Madison Hock. We'll see you next time.